You wipe them off the counter before breakfast, a thin, dark line of them, marching out of the crack by the window, over to where the dog's dish sits, and you press them up with a wet rag and rinse the whole mess down the drain and tell yourself, that is the end of it. By supper time, the line is back. Same crack, same road, walking along as though you never once lifted a hand against them. So you buy the spray, and you buy the little plastic traps, and you run a bead of caulk along the window. And come morning, there is the line again, thin and dark and patient as ever. I am going to tell you why not one thing you have tried has worked. And then I am going to give you the same plain mix we have kept in this kitchen for longer than that. Spray under your sink has even been made. It costs you about $1, and it does not kill the ants you can see. It kills the nest you cannot. Here is the hard part to swallow, so I will say it straight. Every ant you have ever squashed on that counter was already the least of your troubles. The ones out walking in the open are scouts and carriers, a few dozen, maybe a few hundred, sent out from a nest that might hold 10 or 20,000 more, tucked down in a wall, up under the floorboards, out beneath the doorstep, where you will never once lay eyes on it. Kill the ones you see, and the nest simply sends fresh ones out by morning, where it has bodies to spare and does not miss the few you took. So the whole fight, the spraying, the wiping, the swatting, is spent on the one part of the ant that never mattered. What I am going to show you does the very opposite. It takes the ants you can see and turns them into the thing that carries the poison home to the ones you cannot, down to the queen herself, the single ant in that whole colony whose dying ends the thing for good. Do that, and in a week or two, the line does not come back, because there is nothing left alive to send it. My name is Miriam Fisher. I have kept house on the same farm in Lancaster County for near on 50 years, and a farmhouse kitchen in the warm months is about the most tempting thing an ant ever set out toward. There is flour on the board and honey in the jar, a bowl of fruit on the sill, a pie cooling on the rack, and a door that stands open half the day to the yard. My mother kept this same kitchen before me, and her mother before her, and not one of them ever kept a can of bug spray under the sink. There was no such thing to buy when they were young, and no spare money to buy it with if there had been. What they kept instead was a box of plain borax and a bag of sugar, and they understood a thing about the ant that most folks alive today were simply never taught. Stay with me now, because two things here matter more than all the rest put together. There is a way of mixing this that folks get wrong nearly every single time, and getting it wrong is the whole reason their ants march right back. And there is a thing the English pour in a line around the house, dead sure it will keep the ants out, that never touches the nest at all. I will come to both before we are through. There is no villain in how this got forgotten, so do not go looking for one. It got forgotten because it got easy to forget. The spray can came along and promised to do the thinking for you. Point it, press the top, watch them curl up and die right there on the counter. And that quick little death feels like winning, even though the nest under the floor never felt so much as a shiver. And there has never been $1 to be made teaching a woman to stir up a dish of sugar and borax for pennies. No man can sell you a thing you already have sitting in the cupboard. So the plain old way went quiet, a little more of it lost with each passing kitchen, until folks came to believe that an ant in the house is just what summer is, something you swat at until the cold weather comes and carries them off for you. That is not so. It never was. So let me hand it back to you in order. And it starts with knowing the ant, because nearly everyone has her figured wrong from the very first. The ant on your counter is not some lone wanderer that lost her way coming through the yard. She is a scout, and she is following a scent, an invisible trail laid down drop by the ant that came before her, running straight from the crack in your wall to whatever sweet thing she found sitting out. When one scout finds food, she hurries home, laying that trail down thick behind her, and every ant that follows walks the same line, nose to the ground, which is exactly why they come in that neat dark row and always seem to pour from the one same spot. That is also why they turn up worst in the dry stretches of high summer. In a drought, the nest sends its scouts indoors hunting a drink as much as a crumb, and a leaky faucet or a wet dish rag will draw a line just as fast as the sugar bowl will. Now hold that picture in your head, because it is the whole secret of the thing. Those marching ants are not raiders for you to kill. They are little wagons, running a road between your counter and their nest, hauling food home all the day long. And an ant that will faithfully carry home food will just as gladly carry home the thing you have mixed into it. So we do not fight the wagons, we load them. Here is the mix, and mind the amounts close, for this is the very place folks go wrong. Into 1 cup of warm water, you stir about half a teaspoon of borax, no more than that, and near 9 teaspoons of sugar, and you stir until it is all melted down into a sweet syrup. That is a weak mix, and it is weak on purpose. The borax comes to barely 1 part in 100. The folks out at the university in California who study these bugs for a living land on those very same numbers, a hair under 1 part borax to a great deal of sugar. Then you take a little of it out to the ants themselves, soak a cotton ball in the syrup, and set it on a jar lid, or lay a few drops in a short line, right where you see them marching, and right at the crack they come in by. That is the line we have drawn for 100 years and more. Not a wall built to keep them out, but a sweet wet line laid down in their path and meant to be found. A box of borax runs a few dollars and mixes dish after dish after dish. The sugar is next to nothing. You are into the whole business for about $1, and that $1 reaches a nest that no $10 can of spray will ever find. And I do mean 100 years and more, plainly and truly. That yellow box of borax with the team of mules drawn on the side has sat on American store shelves since back in the 1890s. My grandmother could have bought one as a girl. Folks were already using it to clear roaches and ants out of the house long before there was a spray can to be had, and it never once stopped working, because an ant's belly has not changed in all that time. So when I tell you this is old, I am not dressing it up to sound wise. It is simply older than nearly everything else you have been sold to fight a bug with, and it has outlasted the lot of them for one plain reason. It goes after the nest instead of the ant, and the nest is the only thing that was ever worth going after. Now here is why the amount matters so much, and why the folks who dump in a big heaping spoon of borax to make it stronger ruin the whole thing before they start. You want that worker ant to drink her fill, walk the whole way home, and live long enough to share it out. An ant feeds her nest mouth to mouth. She carries the sweet load home in her belly and passes it to the next ant, and that one passes it deeper still, on to the nurses and the young, and at the last to the queen. That passing hand to hand is the thing that carries your dollar's worth of borax into the one room of the nest. You could never reach yourself. One ant never sees the queen, and the queen never comes up to your counter, and yet the poison finds her all the same, hauled down through the dark, from mouth to mouth, by the very ants you are about to squash. Make the mix too strong, and the worker dies right there on the counter with the poison still in her, a quick death and a useless one because it never went home. Weak and slow is the entire point. You are not striking the ant down where she stands. you are letting her carry her own supper home to the queen. So when you set that bait out and see more ants come to it, rather than fewer, a whole crowd of them feeding at once, do not reach for the rag. That crowd is the male getting carried. Leave them be. One more thing on the bait, because it saves folks a deal of grief. Some ants will turn their nose right up at your sugar water, and it is not that the method failed you, it is that an ant changes what she is hungry for through the year. Early in the season, and again, when the nest is raising its young, many ants go hunting grease and meat instead of sweet, and they will walk straight past a dish of syrup toward a smear of bacon fat. When that happens, you simply change the plate you set out. Work about the same small pinch of borax into a spoonful of peanut butter or a dab of grease instead of the sugar water, and set that on the ant's road the same way. The rule underneath never changes. A bait the ant will actually eat is the only bait worth setting, so give her what she is craving this week, sweet or greasy, and let her carry it home either way. If one plate sits untouched a day or two, try the other. That brings me to the part that asks a little of you, and it is only patience. This is not the spray can. Nothing curls up dead on the counter while you stand and watch. For the first few days, you may well see more ants than you started with, because you have set out the finest meal in the whole house, and they have gone and told the nest all about it. Let them come. Keep the bait wet, a bit of fresh syrup every day or two, for a bait dried to a crust does no good to anyone, and keep it right there in their path. Then somewhere in that first week or two, the line begins to thin. Fewer scouts each morning, and then a day comes when you go looking for them and the counter is bare, and it stays bare because the nest that fed that line is gone. If your ants run heavy, or if there is more than one queen down in that nest, and a good many of these nests carry several, it can take a while longer, and you just keep the bait going faithfully until the traffic stops for good. It is slower than a spray, and I will not pretend to you that it is not. It is also the whole difference between wiping ants off this counter every morning for the rest of the summer and being simply, finally done with them. For the folks who want the whole of it written down, the right measure for a bad infestation and for a small one, how to set the bait safe when there are little ones underfoot, which sweets and which greases to try when your ants turn up their nose at plain sugar, and how to shut a kitchen up tight so a new nest cannot move into the old road. I have put all of it into the Ant-Free Kitchen Guide, and the link to it sits right below this video. It is there if you would like the long version in your own hands to work from. That is the only time I will mention it. Now back to the counter. While the bait does its quiet work, there is one thing worth doing to the trail itself, and one thing not to waste a minute on. Worth doing, once your bait is set and the ants are feeding it, wipe down their old roads with plain white vinegar, cut half and half with water. That sour smell breaks up the scent line they have been following, so the stragglers that never made it onto the bait quit wandering across your counter out of pure habit. But hear me plainly, because this is just where the internet will lie to you. The vinegar only cleans up the trail. It does not kill a single ant down in the nest, and if wiping vinegar were the whole of what you did, they would lay a fresh trail and be right back by morning. The very same goes for every wall folks are told to build against ants: a line of cinnamon, a line of chalk, coffee grounds along the sill, or that white dust called diatomaceous earth poured across the doorway. A barrier like that might turn a scout back at the threshold for a day, and the dust will even dry up and kill the few ants that do crawl through it, but it never once reaches the nest, and the moment that dust gets damp, or the ants find a way around it, and they always do find one, you are right back where you began. A wall is not a cure. Feeding the nest is the cure. 2 more plain things will make the bait work faster, and they cost you nothing but a little minding. First, once the nest is dying off, shut the door they came in by. Find that crack at the window or the gap under the sill where the line marched in, and close it up with a dab of caulk so the next nest out in the yard does not simply take over the empty road. Second, and this is the one folks always forget, clear the table for the bait. Your syrup on the jar lid has to be the sweetest thing in that whole kitchen, or the ants will pass it right by for the honey ring on the counter, the crumbs behind the toaster, the sticky spot beside the trash can. So through the week or 2 you are baiting, wipe your counters down at night, put the fruit away in the cupboard, sweep up under the table, and do not leave the dog's dish sitting out on the floor. Take away every other meal in the room, and the one meal left standing is yours, the one carrying the borax home. The university folks say the very same thing. The bait does its best work when the kitchen is kept clean and the ways in are shut. Now, I am going to stop and say the thing that matters most of all, and I want you to hear it before you mix a single drop. Borax is a plain old mineral, and it is low in poison as these things go, but low is not none, and it is not something to be careless with. Set your bait where a child cannot reach it, and where a dog or a cat cannot get at it. That means up on a high sill, or inside a little covered dish, or a lidded jar, tucked behind something, and never out in the open on the floor where a crawling baby or a curious pup will find that sweet syrup and help himself, for it is made sweet on purpose, and that same sweetness that draws the ant is exactly what makes it a danger to the little ones. Swallowed, even a small bit of it will make a person sick to the stomach, and a good deal more is worse than that. So if you have babies underfoot or animals in the house, you keep this bait up and away and out of their reach every single time you set it. Kept where it belongs, it is about the gentlest thing you could ever bring against an ant. Left within a child's reach, it is a hazard, and there is no ant on earth worth a sick little one. Step back a minute and look at what all of this comes to in the end. The English spend the whole summer at war with the ant, a can of spray up on the shelf, the little traps set in the corners, the yearly call to the bug man, and still there is that thin, dark line on the counter every blessed morning, because not one bit of it ever reached the nest. We do the plain opposite. We hand the ant a dish of sweet water with a pennyworth of borax stirred through it. We let her carry it home to the queen. We wait the week or 2 it takes, and then we are simply done. No fog of poison sprayed across the counter where we set our bread. No dollars gone to a can. No war at all. Only a quiet kitchen and an empty crack by the window. That is the whole of the trade. A little patience in the place of a lot of spraying, and pennies in the place of dollars. So here is what I would have you do this week, and I have kept it short enough to carry in your head. Stir half a teaspoon of borax and 9 teaspoons of sugar into a cup of warm water. Soak a bit of cotton in it and set it right on the ant's trail, up where no child or animal can reach. When more ants come to it, leave them be, for they are carrying it home. Keep it wet a day or 2 at a time, and wipe their old roads down with half vinegar and half water. Clear your counters and put your food away. So your bait is the sweetest thing in the room. Give it a week or 2, and then caulk up the crack they came in by. That is the whole of it, and it will run you about $1. Now, I would like to hear from you. Tell me down in the comments where you live and what kind of ant is marching in on you. The little sugar ones, the big black ones, the fast red ones down in the warm states, and which one of these you had never once been taught before today. I read them, every single one, and I will tell you straight which sweet works best against the ant you are fighting, because they do not all want the same supper, and a bait the ant will not eat is no bait at all. And before you go, an ant walks in looking for something sweet, but the roach comes for something else altogether, and keeping a kitchen clear of them is a different matter entirely, done with a cheap powder a good many folks have sitting in a cupboard right now without ever knowing what it can do. Next time I will show you how we have kept this house clear of roaches for as long as anyone can remember, without a bug man ever setting a foot through the door. Until then, mix your little dish of sweet water, set it down on their road, and let the ants carry your troubles home for you. My mother used to say the ant is not clever, only faithful. She will follow the same road, clear to the end of it. So give her a road worth following.